At the beginning of the episode, the macaw bird couple, Blue and Jewel, are at a lively bird party. All the birds are celebrating and having fun. Blue and Jewel are watching their children having a great time, enjoying the music and entertainment. Raphael, their friend, has already handed over the kids to Louise so that he can have fun with his lady friend. Blue and Jewel suddenly realize that their children are missing and ask Louise where they are. Louise tells them that he left the kids with Tiny, which makes them worried. Meanwhile, the baby macaws are exploring. They climb onto a burning pole, excitedly playing and planning to launch fireworks to the beat of the music. Just as they are about to light the fireworks, Blue arrives just in time and manages to stop them. Blue takes a torch stick from the children and firmly tells them, if you want to play with fire next time, ask for permission first. The kids want to take risks and have fun, but Blue reminds them, we are the last known Spixes macaws in the world. We have to be careful. The kids feel like their parents just want them to stay still and be safe, which frustrates them. Suddenly, a small accident occurs when a fire stick is dropped. It lands on a bird's tail, but Blue quickly puts it out. However, the fire spreads to a nearby pole where their baby, Bia, is perched. Blue panics, but the fire is put out just in time before any harm is done. Later, the family is enjoying the New Year celebrations together, focusing on happiness rather than scolding the kids. In another scene, Tulio and Linda arrive in the Amazon jungle for research. As they explore, they come across a rare blue feather, which astonishes them. Back at the camp, Jubal is foraging for Brazil nuts in the jungle to bring back for breakfast. Meanwhile, Blue and the kids are at their nest and they notice food being prepared in a kitchen. Blue, having lived with humans, tries to introduce canned Brazil nuts to the kids. However, Jewel insists that they should learn to eat naturally from the wild. On TV, Linda and Tulio reveal the discovery of a rare feather, proving that there are still more Spixes macaws in the wild. Jewel is overjoyed because she always thought they were the last of their kind. This strengthens her belief that their family should stay in the jungle and live like real birds. Jewel decides that the family should move deeper into the jungle to reconnect with their natural heritage. Meanwhile, Blue is hesitant, as he is more accustomed to human civilization. He seeks advice from Raphael, who encourages him to support Jewel if it makes her happy. As they prepare for their journey, Nigel, the villainous cockatoo, appears with a plan for revenge. The family is unaware of the danger that lies ahead. Only then did the monster accept Raphael and say, go for it, as it was only a moment to find Jewel impressed. After that, the monster and Jewel asked the kids to get ready. Jewel's mother stopped planning to leave with the couple. Her daughter, Carla, said she wasn't bored and didn't want to follow, so she stayed in her little space. That's when Raphael came along and sent his wife to follow the couple. He said they should join. Jewel and the birds just flew up and down to march on the journey, while Louise, who couldn't fly, stayed behind in Brazil. As they traveled, they admired the natural beauty of the landscape, showing it to the kids. After that, the family of macaws arrived at the gate where Jewel's mother was about to enter. Meanwhile, Nigel and Gabby were discussing their next move. Nigel, having been exploited by humans as a fortune-telling bird in the market, remembered Blue finding his family and how he had once ruined Blue's life. Nigel couldn't stand it any longer, so he resisted his handler, caused chaos, and freed himself. Along with his companion, he once again set his sights on Blue. Nigel had already planned an attack at midnight. He and his allies boarded a boat, preparing to use the toxins of Gabby in their scheme. By the time midnight arrived, Blue and the other birds were exhausted and sleeping. That's when Gabby appeared. Smoke rose from the chimney as she said, the poison will go into the sleeping monster's mouth. The poison machine was set to release its deadly fumes, but there was a twist. Nigel insisted he would handle Blue himself. Just as Gabby tried to proceed, she was stopped. Even though she was determined, her efforts were in vain. Meanwhile, Charlie, Nigel's silent anteater companion, was downstairs eating ants from a bottle. In the process, he accidentally knocked over a bottle, which hit a button on the wall. The ship's large iron starburst mechanism activated, causing a loud noise. Nigel, startled, lost his footing and tumbled down the stairs. The commotion woke up people aboard the ship. Spotting Nigel and Charlie, one of the travelers hit Nigel with a guitar, causing Nigel and his group to fall off the ship into the water, along with a life-saving raft. The next morning, Blue and his family disembarked the ship, looking for their next destination. Meanwhile, Nigel, Charlie, and Gabby, exhausted from their ordeal, were floating away on the raft. Elsewhere in the jungle, a tycoon involved in illegal logging was growing impatient. His associate, Lena, had gone into the forest, worried about a certain affair. Lena was searching for the birds, but the boss instructed the workers to carry on with their deforestation plans. Linda and Tulio, who were camping nearby, were also exploring, hoping to find more Spix's macaws. They believed that the macaws would build their nests near Brazilian nut trees. Blue, who had wandered into the forest, took a short rest while watching over the children. Jewel was also watching over them, but suddenly, when Blue and Bia returned, neither the kids nor Jewel were in sight. A bird had taken them away. Blue quickly reacted, trying to locate them by following the sounds of birds in distress. Linda and Tulio also heard the noise and suspected something was wrong, but they were unable to continue the search due to a canyon blocking their path. Meanwhile, Blue was determined to protect his family. He pulled out a pocket knife from a small flask and prepared himself. That's when he finally found his friends and family, realizing they had been captured. But in the end, when young Joey was reunited with his father, it was a moment of joy. Jewel's father, grateful for Blue's efforts, expressed his appreciation for bringing his daughter back safely. Blue, relieved, embraced his family, grateful that they were finally together again. And Jewel and her children, Carla and Bayatayako, stood together as she introduced them to her father. "Dad, the macaw species have been struggling for years," she explained. "People have driven them deeper into the forest, but now they found a small place of refuge." Excitedly, she called out, prompting all the birds to come out of their nests, for Jewel had returned. As soon as Aunt Mimi saw Jewel, she rushed forward. Not long after, a melodious bird arrived. It was Jewel's old friend, Roberto, who was also a close companion of Jewel's father, Eduardo. Eduardo's right-hand companion had also returned. Then, as if on cue, they started to sing the song they used to share. Roberto enthusiastically took the lead, his energy so intense that it made the others uneasy. While Jewel and the children found joy in the moment, Linda felt something was missing, a past connection that still lingered in her mind. The macaw species sanctuary was finally secured, but now, an event was being planned to celebrate it. Nico and Pito took the Makos to Rio to consult on the best way to host a festival. However, upon hearing of this, Julie firmly stated that no one should leave the nest and instead ventured into the forest to gather human materials for the event. By the time Julie and Jewel returned from the dance preparations, the Blues insisted that he take a break. The division between the sides was growing, but Julie, determined, called the entire family to stay together in his nest. The Blues, however, were not entirely comfortable with the situation. That night, a storm rolled in, shaking the forest. The Blues found themselves in a tough battle. Jewel, sensing the tension, comforted the children by singing to them. Afterward, Jewel approached me, declaring that tonight would be the last night of fun. "We will still be alive," Jewel reassured, "even after all that has happened." I admitted that I had never dared to believe in such hope before. Jewel, now reunited with her family, was filled with happiness, and everything seemed to change. However, the Blues were still confused, not fully understanding Jewel's words. Exhausted, Jewel fell asleep in my lap. Meanwhile, Linda, who had been asleep in a tent, was startled awake by a strange shadow outside. Grabbing her flashlight, she peered into the darkness. What she saw wasn't a human, it was a monkey, likely working for the lumberjacks. The next morning, the children arrived at the Blues camp, playfully exploring a nearby cave. Bill, frightened by something, let out a loud scream, waking everyone up. I was jolted awake as well. It was a sad and eerie way to start the day. Jewel's father was brushing his teeth with a toothbrush he had brought from home. As the Blues lingered in the forest, Jewel arrived, frustrated that they were still sleeping late as usual. Without waking anyone, Jewel quietly left. Later, the children received clay paint from Aunt Mimi, who explained that it was good for digestion. However, Jufa, the leader of a nearby bird community, insisted that the Blues should be careful with human materials. At that moment, the monster entered, carrying a large bag he had been wearing. Jewel's father, who disliked human-made objects, immediately urged him to put it away. "I don't even want to see that enormous bag," he exclaimed. Since Jewel's father was deeply connected to the traditions of the clan, he treated the bag like an unwelcome relic of human interference. "It's like banning people from using hangovers," someone joked. Jürgen, watching the exchange, was puzzled. "Are you saying we should stay here permanently after our visit?" he asked. Jules' father firmly replied, as I said, leave behind the unnecessary things and don't spoil the moment. The monster, hearing the wisdom in Jules' father's words, obediently followed the request. All right, he said, I'll go see Jules' dad. Meanwhile, Carla had her own plans. Mommy Shunt's wild son has a plan, she announced cryptically. Rafi encouraged her. Go on, Carla. What's your idea? I'll put on a show in the morning, she declared confidently. Even so, preparations continued as they inspected dance performances from the birds in the forest, making sure everything was ready for the grand celebration. The Juff called the Blues and began training them to adapt to jungle life, teaching them to hide their habits, act like wild birds, and avoid using human-made tools. It's tough, but you must learn to survive in the wild, Juff said. Afterward, Juff led the Blues to the Brazilian timber trees, where they hid. These trees must be protected, Juff's father reminded them. But the Blues, exhausted, had fallen asleep. Juff's father had to wake them up again. When the loggers appeared nearby, the Blues quickly hid behind the trees. They shouldn't be this close to our village, Juff explained. The Blues suggested finding Lena, the human who had recently given birth, thinking she could help. But Juve was disappointed to learn that the Blues had been living as pets. The humans are not family, Juff's father insisted. But they are, the Blues argued. Linda and Lena helped us survive. Juff refused to accept humans into their clan. Meanwhile, Lena and Tulio were searching for the macaw's green nest but instead saw trees being cut down. Furious, Lena confronted the loggers. There are rare birds here. You can't destroy their habitat, she protested. But the loggers ignored her. The upper black Duelio realized the situation was bigger than just cutting wood and warned, stop running for Lena. However, he was captured, and the loggers began hunting Lena desperately. Back at the nest, Juve was worried. He distracted himself by teaching his sons new tricks, saying, I finally learned how to backflip from the rubber. Jewel playfully challenged the monster, some of you don't even know how. Later, Juff told Roba about the humans. The Blues, still moody after their cleanup, wandered off alone. Suddenly, a loud noise echoed, sticks and cans clashing. Charlie stuck out his tongue and joked, but Juff warned, stop that. It's not a monster, it's another bad bird. That bird, Niger, was searching for a new star, and his friends were helping. He introduced himself as Boba the Bird Hood and began singing. The crowd fell in love with his performance, and Niger was chosen for the concert that night. During the show, Gabby, the villain, tried to poison the monster, but the plan was stopped just in time. Afterward, the monster stayed at the nest, checking the GPS while the village gathered to watch the sunset. We don't need a GPS, the monster said. Linda and Tulio are here, and the forest is vast, someone added. Julie's father, still skeptical about humans, said, we'll only believe in them if we see Lena. Juro responded, we don't want to go back to Lena, we just want to live here without interference. Julie's father hesitated. The bees are not like them, so we must keep an eye on the robes. As they were talking, a group of friends arrived, and time passed quickly. Meanwhile, the monster left early in the morning to find a Brazilian guide. On the other side, Linda, while hiding, was startled by a snake and screamed. The villains searching for her were ambushed. One of them had a snake thrown around his neck, causing them to flee. At the same time, the Blues were searching for walnuts when a group of monkeys robbed them. The monkeys tossed the GPS out of the bag, forcing the Blues to chase after it. When they finally retrieved the belt bag, they unplugged the walnut. Just then, red parrots arrived, calling for a battle. They planned to interrupt the beer celebration at noon, replacing it with their feast instead. When I told my father about it, Jewel looked at me and said, I'm going to lose my walnut. And I'm going to be angry. Determined, I asked the others to gather the best birds and prepare for battle. Meanwhile, Linda managed to escape while the loggers returned to their tent. Inside, she recognized someone, the leader of the loggers. But before she could act, she was caught and thrown from a tree. As the situation escalated, the monster intervened, stopping both sides just as they were about to fight. The battle felt like a soccer match, except the winner would claim the entire Brazilian walnut forest. No birds were left to play, so the monster himself stepped in. Just as the game started, the walnut was kicked downhill. The Blues tried to catch it but struggled, nearly injuring themselves. Though feeling moody, Jewel stayed near the Blues, watching closely. Blue thought to himself, I'll never be the bird Joey wanted me to be. I'm going home, Juve said, realizing that both he and the kids were happy in this natural environment. This is home. But Blue, despite doing his best to fit in, felt differently. This isn't home for me, he admitted. Jewel told him to think it through before leaving. Wrapping his belt bag around him, Blue checked the GPS and headed toward the loggers' camp. What he found was worse than expected, the deforestation had expanded. Arriving at Linda's location, Blue removed his belt bag and said his silent goodbyes. But before he could leave, he called out to Linda. At that moment, Roberta arrived, and people started working together. Someone called Blue a traitor, but he ignored it. "Roberta is dangerous," he muttered, unwilling to argue further. As they talked, a fallen tree came crashing down, threatening to crush Roberta. Blue quickly saved her. Afterward, he vowed to find his friends and asked Roberta to warn the other birds. Meanwhile, Linda struggled. "You can't escape, they're being held up in the trees," she said. The monster appeared, and Linda called for action. The green bird swooped in, rescuing the captives. At the same time, the monster sabotaged the logging machine by taking its key, preventing further destruction. As they watched the ruined forest, anger boiled over. Roberta grew furious. "We have to fight back," I said. "My father didn't escape danger, he stood his ground for his family. I won't run either." The monster returned, telling Jural's father what was happening. They began gathering birds for battle. On one side, the machines advanced. Linda warned that the loggers were getting closer. A flock of macaws attacked, overwhelming the loggers. Their leader, frightened, tried to retreat. "Forget about the trees," he ordered, realizing they were in deep trouble. Jufa rallied the giants, commanding them to attack. The monster led the birds, causing chaos among both the loggers and their machines. Every creature joined the battle, even the so-called evil birds. Nyla clashed with Darling, and the monster fought fiercely. The red group, initially allergic to macaws, now circled the humans and launched their attack. Jewel's father, caught in the chaos, was nearly struck when Lena intervened, helping him. The Blues, despite the intensity of the battle, seemed to enjoy themselves. The logging boss, desperate, threw bombs at the trees, trying to destroy everything. Blue, acting fast, grabbed the bombs and carried them away. "Can you hear that?" someone yelled. "It's about to explode." Blue barely escaped before the powerful explosion shook the forest. Bra and Nye, caught in the blast, were left unconscious, tangled in tree branches. When they woke up, the fight resumed. Amid the battle, Gabby, the villain, made his final move. But in the end, the good side prevailed. The winner was declared, and they all gathered around the mysterious bird Powder named Bob. Niger, confused, had no idea what had just happened. Gabby, soulless and defeated, realized he had lost everything. But strangely, Gabby confessed his love for Niger, wanting to stay by his side forever. After the battle, Linda's efforts paid off, the entire area was designated as a nature reserve. The news spread, even reaching TV. The Nigels were taken back to the RIO camp for further study by Lena. Meanwhile, John and the birds celebrated their victory, proud of their homeland. At last, the Blues decided to stay in the jungle. Jural, now accepted among the monster clan, said, "If it's summer, I'll visit RIO." And with that, their story ended, a natural, happy life in the motherland. As the battle settled and the jungle echoed with victorious cries, a sense of peace washed over the land. The once threatened home now stood protected, a sanctuary reclaimed. Blue, no longer torn between two worlds, finally felt at home. The warmth of his family, the unity of the flock, and the untamed beauty of the wild, all of it belonged to him now. With the sky painted in golden hues, they knew this was more than just an ending, it was the start of a new chapter. A future where the jungle thrived, where families stayed together, and where Blue had finally found where he truly belonged. Thank you for watching until the end. I'll be uploading every 2 days, so don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated.